This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to all of you from wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to andBeyond and Ngala this afternoon. And what we have here is a small herd of elephants, and they've kind of just moved from the long grass right into the road. Cause a typical African traffic jam at the moment. You can see the big female in the front. There's actually a few more that are coming through on the left. But yeah, so good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to spend a little bit more time with these elephants for now, but a very warm welcome to all of you from wherever you may be to your very own live safari from the African bush. Welcome back, everybody. So I've just moved a little bit forward. I'm actually going to stop right here. There are a few more elephants that are coming on the left, and you kind of lose sight of them. I mean, it's weird to think that you can even lose sight of such a big animal in the long grass, but particularly these smaller ones. I mean, the big female who's now on the road, you won't lose in the long grass, but her younger ones that are kind of meeting up, and they're going to come and join her shortly, you can even lose sight of them. You sometimes just see the grass moving down as they walk. There's another one that's coming through to join on the left-hand side here. But good afternoon, everybody. I'm Daniel Fisher, and on camera this afternoon we've got Odie. It's been a while that Ngala's been out, but it's good to be back. Nice and hot today. Good early start as well. Here comes an elephant that's just kind of strolling through, kind of joining up. It's like a younger bull that might be on the peripheries of the herd. Interesting. I mean, it's a super hot day today. There is lots of water around as well. It looks like that big female up ahead. When she came past us, I did have a good look at her, and she looked like she had spent some time at a small little mud wallow, cooling down. We haven't actually had incredible heat recently. I'm just going to move a little bit forward here. And on hot days like this, particularly when there is lots of water, you'll see these elephants looking for these small little mud wallows in between the grass here and in between the roads. They don't have to necessarily go to a great big watering hole either, simply for the reason that there is so much water around. Even in the roads, there's quite a lot of mud wallows and mud patches. And I mean, let's see if we can have a good look at that female that's up ahead. She's very clearly the leader. You can see just from her behavior, everybody is kind of following her. Now she's stopped to feed. You see the smaller ones is doing exactly the same, and everyone will kind of follow her lead. If you have a closer look, I don't know how clear it is to see, you can, even this one that's kind of just come into our shot, can you see the darker grey areas on the animals? And that is exactly what I was talking about, the water that they would have gone to. And they would have thrown water on themselves, particularly behind their ears, on their backs, underneath themselves, to try and cool themselves down. And I mean, it is super, super hot at this time of the day, and I mean, you can see them all feeding. They don't really have the luxury of a lot of the other animals of being able to spend this time kind of resting in the shade. There will be times when they do, but being such a big herbivore, they need to spend a huge portion of their time moving around and feeding. They don't have the luxury of being able to rest and snooze in the heat of the day. So going to a watering hole and wetting themselves and cooling themselves down is a really good way to ensure that they don't overheat and allows them to feed for a lot longer. I mean, being such a big animal, it takes a long time for them to heat up. It also takes a long time for them to cool down. So you see those ears kind of flapping over there. Keegan, what size is the typical elephant herd? And it'll vary from region to region. I would probably say around Ngala, we would probably have an average herd size of 10, 15, even about 20. But then at some points you can have larger herds, even up to about 50 that come through our property. This seems like a smaller herd in the kind of development stages of the animals' lives. And you'll see these younger ones that are with the female, they will essentially grow up, particularly the females. They'll always live in this kind of group. The males will get to an age where they'll leave, and then they'll live this nomadic life where they'll be forced to look for breeding opportunities elsewhere. It's kind of how you ensure that interbreeding doesn't occur. So this is a relatively small elephant herd. And I'm sure in the next few years, once these elephants, the younger ones, get a bit bigger, they're going to have calves of their own, and this herd is going to get quite a lot bigger. It's amazing to see those ears flapping. I mean, we were talking earlier about how the water behind their ears will cool them down. They've got a super detailed vein network, and you can see she's doing it very obviously. All of them, in fact, are flapping their ears like that, particularly with the water that they had thrown behind their ears earlier. That'll cool. There's very thin layer of skin and lots of veins in their ears. That'll cool the blood down in their ears. And when you're flapping it, the wind over the moisture, that cools the blood down. And then the blood gets pumped throughout the body, and that'll keep them cool. In the meantime, I'm going to stick with these elephants, and I'm going to send you over to have a look at what the weather's doing this afternoon. Good afternoon from a very sunny, very warm andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. And just like those elephants were doing over at Ngala with Dan, we've found a blue wildebeest also trying to keep nice and cool. My name's Damon, behind the camera is Craig, and we've come out into probably the worst spot on the reserve to come during a hot sunny day like this, but out into the open plains in search of some elephant bulls that have apparently been feeding through the grasslands here, making use of all the lush green grass thanks to our wonderful rain that we've had over the last few weeks. And we've started off, like I said, with this lone blue wildebeest bull who, when we arrived, was very carefully positioned underneath that, it looks like a bushveld saffron, that tree over there. It's casting a lovely shadow, but he now seems to have other things on his mind. See how he's walked out and he's now staring up the hill. I'm not quite sure what it is that he's staring at, or if he is. Yeah, it looks like he's scanning. There's a couple of zebra a little bit higher up the hillside there, out in the open. They look like they're feeding. I made mention of the long grass. Look at how high that grass is. It's coming all the way up, just about to the zebra's shoulders. They're standing on a road, so that grass is a lot longer than what it looks. I think if the zebra was to actually walk into the grass, some of it might come up to their shoulders. But look at those three at the front there. It looks like they're all resting each other's chins and each other's rear ends. Certainly the front two. Look at how that middle one has got its chin on the front one's back, just resting. Front one bobbing its head around. Look at how they're shaking their heads and their tails are constantly swishing. Can you see that? There's a lot of flies that are buzzing around at the moment. And shame, even this poor wildebeest also swishing his tail, not as much as the zebra are. It's almost like a train, the zebra. The one in the front with its head down, then the next one with its chin on that one's rump, and then the back one also hitched up there. We just need the fourth one. Can you imagine if the fourth one also joins up? That'll be the most ridiculous photograph. There we go. Come on, number 4. Even the third one, or the second from the back, doesn't seem to be as keen on resting its chin as that second one is. He's had his chin there for the whole time. That front one shaking his head around. It's almost like he's got something in his nose or an irritation. Maybe a bot fly or something like that. Apparently there's lots of comments about how pretty the landscape is here at the moment and how green it is. It's unbelievable, and the grass is it's thinned out somewhat because we've had a few days of really hot, intense sun. But a couple of days ago, my goodness, driving through here, you could lose a wildebeest pretty easily in this long grass. That's just how long and thick it was. And that's why these elephants have been down here in the plains.
I know you saw a herd with Dan over at Ngala just now. We've been very lucky in that we've had all of the herds of elephants here at andBeyond Phinda, or at least most of them have been down in these open plains. And that's something very special for us here at andBeyond Phinda, because most of the year, the herds of elephants with their little ones, they tend to spend most of their time up in the far north of the reserve, in the very dense woodland, which can make them sometimes quite hard to see. And you can't quite get an idea of how many elephants there are because of how dense the bush is. But this abundance of grass and the abundance of surface water down here because of the rains has just kept them down here for the last couple of weeks, and it's been absolutely wonderful. As I said, a pretty hot and sunny afternoon. The sun's pretty intense. And I'm sure that, there we go, that Wildebeest has moved on to the next patch of shade, everybody. Okay, but nice to have found this Wildebeest, and I'm glad that he's found a comfortable spot to lie down in the shade, and that he is in the shade, because it's way too hot to be out in the sun. We're going to leave this Wildebeest and these zebra as they continue with their afternoon. We're going to keep on heading in the direction of a large waterhole, go see if there's any sign of those elephant bulls, and while we do that, let's send you across to Tswalu so that they can say hello.
I absolutely agree with Damon. He said it's absolutely crazy to be out in the sun, and we're here at Tswalu at a very warm 30 degrees, but I think it's even hotter than that. And we also haven't found the shade like the wildebeest, so we're going to definitely be in search of that, because that will be where most of our animals are today, would be under the shade at the moment. You're with me, Deirdre, and on camera this afternoon is BK. So our plan is to find shade. We've got sort of patchy cloud. Every now and again there's one cloud that goes in front of the sun and gives us a momentary relief. But yeah, no real big trees in the Kalahari, so no real place for us to hide. We'll just keep bumbling along and seeing what we can find hiding in the shade. But definitely up until that, probably another hour and a half at least before this heat starts dissipating a little bit. Very, very toasty, but what a beautiful view out there of the Korannaberg. No chance of rain, just some nice puffy cumulus clouds. As BK swings all the way around, you'll start seeing the nice red sand dunes popping out. There they start coming into frame. Just absolutely love that red soil of the Kalahari. The contrasting colours between the red soils, the nice green vegetation, and the blue and white in the sky makes for a very, very beautiful picture. So nothing's really moving at this time. We don't even hear any birds. They're all hiding in the shade. It would be way too hot. Andrew is commenting that the landscape in Tswalu is absolutely stunning, and it is always changing depending on what the cloud cover is doing, the time of the year. I was just looking at photographs from November of last year, and it was just red sand. And because of the very, very generous rains that we've had this season, we're now covered in this blanket of green and can hardly see any of that red soil anymore. So if you're an animal in the Kalahari and you get incredibly hot days like today, your only option is to go and try and conserve some of your moisture by lying under the shade of the trees. Even the birds, I said earlier, we're not even hearing them calling. They'll just find a shady spot and limit all their movement because they can't afford to lose too much moisture. And even the trees themselves, actually some of the acacia trees or the vicalias, they'll actually fold up their leaves to prevent moisture loss because it's so hot.
If you love to watch WildEarth, then we are inviting you to join our Explorers program. For a monthly subscription, you will have the opportunity to win fantastic WildEarth expeditions, join our guides for a chat around the fire, receive weekly highlights from our shows, and much more. All the money will go to keeping these live safaris on air, which in turn allows us to escape into nature every single day.
Sometimes love wants to make you sing. And sometimes love wants to make you bow and fan your wings to your bow. For the southern yellow-billed hornbill, these are signs that love is in the air. These birds are destined for a season of monogamy at least. Breeding pairs are in it for the survival of their chicks. But before love commences, the male needs to woo his valentine with food in the form of nuptial gifts.
My name is Ross and I'm a field guide at andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on WildEarth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on WildEarth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
Hello, boy. You are a monster. And he's coming right up to us. Hello, boy. Oh, settle down. Settle down. He is very, very close. He's pushing his trunk against the car. You can feel the car moving. Hey, 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 hey. Stop that.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
What fascinates me most about the animal circle of life is the intricacies between the large and the very, very small. I mean, it's very easy to go out there and find the large. Once you found the large, the cascading effects down to the small absolutely fascinates me. Alertness and situation awareness is by far the #1 aspect for protecting ourselves out on safari.
Catch up with the guides daily here on WildEarth.
Good afternoon everybody. Welcome to Djuma Private Game Reserve again this afternoon, where we're sitting right here on a slightly uphill, but looking at a beautiful silver leaf tree or silver cluster leaf, where its name come from by looking at beautiful of a silver that's showing up in name. My name's Andrew on camera. I have Mpo this afternoon. So this is where we're going to begin. Look around for what we're going to find this afternoon for everybody. It's actually a beautiful tree out here, where we always, for us as guides, every time you see a lot of these plants in places where there's a low ground, then you know it's never good for you to off-road. Where the ground is soft, you may sink. And it comes so much favorite for most animals, such as elephants and most other browsers, antelopes.
a while ago when named trees like this as a silver cluster leaf, but a terminalia, where leaf are very much as silver even at night. When you shine around with a spotlight, you pick it up quite easily. And then medicinal uses. If you chew these leaves, would heal or settle down a diarrhea, tummy. All you do is just chew those leaves and you swallow the sap on the juices, and then you throw out all the remain. And also used so I'm only asking if some moth and butterfly would eat on leaf, but no, they would definitely feed on or the moistures that is actually occurred within the flowers itself during the flowering time. But also when in the morning, where these flowers sometimes hold a lot of moisture from the low temperatures at night, the whole night. And of course, most of the moths and the butterflies, they would suck this liquid. So I'm going to carry on this afternoon, search around for anything we're going to find. In the meantime, I'll be sending you across to Steve to say hi to everybody.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a pretty warm and sunny Prrivate's eco training, where we've caught up with a small breeding herd of elephants that a moment ago were behaving a little strangely. I'll discuss that more at length in a moment while we just say good afternoon to all of you. Hello, everybody. How are we doing? My name is Steve. I'm joined by Gert on camera, and as always, excited to have you with us. It is a very fine 30 degrees Celsius today. There's a few clouds in the sky, but it is quite warm. But we found this herd just across the road moments ago, and this female was seemingly quite relaxed with the young calf, and then what I think was a young bull just ran and just pushed her out the way. But she seems to have calmed down quite quickly. There doesn't seem to be too much else going on. So we're just going to allow you to listen for a moment, and please feel free to send any questions through to us here at Prrivate's. Bruce, well, it seems in summer months elephants go a little bit crazy for marulas, so I suppose that's one of their favourite foods. But in the sort of summer months, they love feeding on all the forbs, the wildflowers and creepers. It looks like it's got some form of creeper in its mouth right now. But throughout the year, they can't obviously get that food all year round. It's just like
It used to be historically around the world you could only get strawberries at certain times of the year, or mangoes. Now, due to international sort of transport of the stuff, you can get whatever you want yearly. But that's not the case out here. Elephants have to feed on what is available, but definitely the summer months they get a lot more feeding in, a lot more nutrition to sort of see them through the winter months, and then they feed on the really bitter stuff. Any leaves that are left behind, they rip up the bark, eat the bark, and the bark's often quite bitter, as well as the roots of many of the trees. But they do go a little bit stir crazy for fruit, and definitely enjoy the odd marula. Odd ton of marulas, should I say. Very sensitive smell. He's selecting exactly what she wants to feed on there. Because they taste good, Craig. They taste good. Why do we eat things that are bad for us, Craig? Marula is actually good for the elephants. It's not that they don't digest them. They get the juice out of it, but they don't digest the outer sort of skin, and they're not able to really break open the seed kernel itself. So they get a bit of the juice. If you've ever taken a marula and popped it in your mouth, it's very tasty, especially when ripe. When it's not ripe, it's quite sour. So I think it's a little bit of a sort of a change from some of the very bitter food that they find themselves feeding on. So the very fibrous outer shell of the marula comes straight out the other side, but there's definitely something that takes place inside, because don't forget the elephant's digestive system is all about fermentation. So all that fruit in the digestive system will ferment, and it comes out the other side and is an absolutely splendid meal for squirrels and other animals. And well, we're going to probably move on from an elephant, send you over to Djuma to say good afternoon to Lauren.
Who doesn't love marulas? I definitely do. Now, we have a great surprise for you, but I believe the species in question has just moved, and I don't have a monitor, so I can't see anything that you can see, but I'm going to rely on my cameraman here. Mr. Darby? Yep. That's who's on camera. Lauren is who's talking. Good afternoon, everyone. And how do I position for this little one, Dov?
This is all right.
We had it perfectly. It is, in fact, a flower mantis, fastly becoming one of my favorite insects. They are incredible, and I actually came out here in the mid-hot sun during the day. We're right next to camp to find this for you all. It took me a while, but I found one. Incredibly camouflage insects with a remarkable survival strategy. You got it, Dav?
Yep.
There we go. To look just like a flower. Now, what they do, this is called aggressive mimicry. And generally speaking, when you use the word camouflage normally refers to species that resemble an inanimate object, like we discussed yesterday, like bark. But really, I guess a flower is not inanimate. It's alive. It's not lifeless. So then we use the word mimicry. It's mimicking the flower of the Waltheria here. And that's why we call it aggressive mimicry, because it's very aggressive. What it's actually doing is trying to lure in the prey, pretending it's a flower, pretending it's got delicious nectar or delicious goodness for the insect to come along, land on it, and bam, snapped up immediately. And that's why we call it mimicry and not camouflage. And the females are much larger than the males, believe it or not. And it's said, lots of research now suggests that the female's hunting strategy, which is to hunt pollinating insects that land on the flower, is actually what shaped the evolution of the two sexes, if you like. So it's led to big, huge females, and they're absolutely remarkable at resembling flowers, and very, very small males, not too unlike spiders. And the males are remarkable at hiding. They're the ones that hide. They don't wait for pollinating insects. So although they're both the same species, they have remarkable different lifestyles. And how it all began, the mantis at one point in its life, the ancestors, I guess, started to hang around flowers. And then they realized, these flowers are bringing in insects. This is great. I'm going to hide behind the flower. And of course, along the lines of evolution, a long period of time, they've evolved to look exactly like the flower. And it's the females that take advantage of this. So the bigger the female, the bigger the prey she can take down. You get small ants that come, you get small flies, but you also get huge butterflies. So the bigger a female you are, the bigger prey you can take down. But there's one problem, if you think about it. If you are mimicking a flower, you've got to stay remarkably still. The minute you move, your game is over, and you no longer mimic that flower. So it's a challenge. And I'm definitely going to jump out this vehicle and take some photos. And as I do that, we're going to send you guys across to Phinda.
Welcome back to andBeyond Phinda. Craig and I have had some success with our elephant search. We found at least 8 elephant bulls that are all stretched out across the grassy plains, and that's, as you've all seen before, and as I said before, one of my favorite things about this part of the reserve is because of how open it is, you can spot things from miles away using binoculars. And Craig and I saw these elephants from far in the distance up on a hillside, and there's only 5 of them here for now, but there's a 6th one on his way, and then off to my right, way in the distance, there's 2 more that seem to be doing their own thing and heading off in a different direction. But since we've been here, they literally have not stopped eating. They've just been using their trunks to grab bunches of this wonderful grass, and they've been shoveling mouthful after mouthful into their mouths. Look at how they use that trunk of theirs to gather up the grass, dust it off a little bit, and then pop it into their mouths. And there's that one walking around with a whole bunch hanging out of his mouth. It looks like he's got a big chunk of uncooked spaghetti in his mouth. And they seem to just be gathering up the top parts of the grass, throwing it onto his head. I'm just going to move a little bit back, everybody, just to give this elephant in front of us a little bit more space. He does seem to want to come down the road in our direction. I don't want to obstruct his path. There we go, that's a bit better. Just listen very carefully to the sounds of them feeding. Oh, but before we do that, Pa, you're asking how elephants keep their tusks clean. So, Pa, I think you're making reference to this bull in front of us here that's standing with his back legs in the road. Those tusks, have a look at those. Look at how pearly white they are. They're really shiny, really clean, in, I suppose, relatively stark contrast to the bull off to the right of him, who's got pretty muddy tusks, covered in dirt, much like the rest of his body. Pi, from what I've seen, elephants don't tend to worry too much about the cleanliness of their tusks. We very often see elephants, well, it's very seldom, at least here at andBeyond Phinda, that we see elephants with tusks as clean as this elephant bull in front of us. And I think the reason that his tusks are so clean is that he's been using them to dust grass off before he puts it in his mouth. Often you watch elephants when they're feeding on grass, they'll gather up a bunch and they'll almost like clean it off on their tusks. See exactly what he just did there now. Thank you for illustrating that for me, elephant. Yeah, so they'll almost like brush off if there's a bit of dust, a bit of dirt on the grass before they eat it. But most of the time, it doesn't seem to be a concern for them to have mud on their tusks. Like I was saying, at least the bull off to the right of him and all the other bulls here that we can see, they all seem to have pretty dirty tusks. Just thinking about elephant pictures as well, elephant photographs that I've seen and elephants that I've seen elsewhere in southern Africa, it often tends to be elephants living in very grassy areas where they feed mainly on grass. They seem to often have very clean tusks. A lot of photographs I've seen from East Africa, from Amboseli, the Masai Mara, the Serengeti, barring elephants that have in those areas that have just had like a mud bath or something like that, they tend to have pretty clean tusks from all the grass that they've been dusting off on those tusks. Craig and I are going to spend a bit more time with these elephants. There's, oh my word, there's a 9th elephant bull that's just appeared. But behind these bulls, there is an absolute behemoth of an elephant bull. He's got big tusks, and I'm really hoping that we can try and show him to you on camera. So Craig and I are going to wait for these bulls to keep on moving through, wait for the bigger guy to come through, and we'll head across to Tswalu in the meantime to see what's going on at the water hole.
So we've just got some Egyptian geese bobbing around the dam. And the good news is that this female has still got 9 of them. 9 goslings are still doing really well. And yeah, they're just all over the dam. So lots of the youngsters, they're getting almost their full adult plumage at this stage. They're just sort of slightly paler in coloration compared to the adults. But they are doing really well. So sometimes they have it lucky, but to have raised 9 to this stage is done really well. And then there is the only other bird sort of enjoying themselves is BK, let's come here. We've got something very interesting. There's a wasp dragging a locust on the ground. I've just seen him going past. How awesome. Just watch that wasp, and then he's picked up an entire locust, and it's like twice his size. Look at that. Look at the speed at which he's moving. Oh, I think he's looking for a particular place to take it. So he's running along at speed. Check, and he'll come back. So that'll be one of the spider hunting wasps. But, you know, dragging a locust like that is most likely stung the locust and then paralyzed it, that it's not able to move, and then it will try and bury it but lay eggs in it, and then as the wasp hatches as a little caterpillar, it'll feed off that meal before it then pupates. But that is just amazing to see on live TV. And the insect world is often so overlooked, but just look at that strength. That is incredible, the speed at which it's moving, plus the fact that it's carrying something that's probably at least 3 times its weight. So I don't know exactly where it's going to take it, but that's already moved more than, I would say, almost 10 meters while we've been watching it. So on the screen you don't necessarily see the distance, but it's already gone beyond the car, up and close to almost over the dam wall. What an amazing feat. It's almost like we've put it on fast forward, but that is genuinely the speed at which it is moving. Chris is commenting that this is incredible. I absolutely agree with you. It's my first time seeing a wasp drag a locust, at that speed as well, it might be looking for... What I always find amazing is that the wasps, they've either already dug somewhere that they're going to go and bury it or lay its eggs in it, and it knows exactly where it wants to go. So it's dragging that all the way back to a set location, and how they manage to find that location in the middle of nowhere always amazes me. So it's gone... So it's left the locust, but it's moving around. The wasp is moving around in the little thicket at the back there. Maybe it's just looking for exactly where it wants to put this locust as hidden, because remember, that locust could be a food source for a bird or something else. So it's got to get it well hidden quite quickly, and maybe that's the reason for the rapid movement, to just get it out and get it hidden, so that the locust doesn't become a snack for something like a hornbill. But isn't that just amazing? There it comes back. I think that's about to go out of shot and disappear completely. Real, very, very busy. It's even too fast for BK at some points there. Just so busy moving around. So not the typical, a lot of the areas you find like a spider hunting wasp, it almost sounds like a helicopter. These ones don't make noise. We don't hear them flying around, but it was just very, very nice to see that. And that's it. So from the peaceful scene on the dam to the wasp and the locust. So we're going to send you across to Pride Lands. It also has some elephants to show you.
Well, how interesting, everybody. Wasps preying on insects. Well, a very good example of how relaxed elephants can be is when you park off. She's listening. And they come right up to you. You're right here in front of us. Female and her calf. And hear them feeding. Got a bit of a stumpy tail. Hello, Mama. Say hello to Gert. Soft eyes, beautiful eyes. She's going behind the car. But to add on to what we were discussing before about favourite foods, they definitely do feed primarily on grass this time of year. Very green, juicy grass. And as the grass starts to dry, it loses its nutrients. And as the grass will reabsorb those nutrients back into the soil, into the roots, as a preparation for the fire season. And then they'll have to switch to the other foods, but they will feed on trees and bark and leaves as a sort of balanced diet. You see, there we go, very balanced little nose. What happened to your tail, little one? That's a brave little boy. You're very brave, aren't you? And they've now gone right behind the car. I'm not going to start because she's very relaxed, but still for me to start the car and reposition, I could influence her, and I'd rather not do that. So, we're going to show you this beautiful tree once again on our right-hand side. Oh, she's moved. That'll be good. I'll actually turn now just slightly. Okay, well, while we try and reposition, get you into... Okay,
She's moved into the shade of this marula tree. We were just enjoying some shade. This car is not like the short little Djuma vehicles that you can turn on a penny. This one requires a number of attempts. And there we go. Sure, that was hard work. So they move from shady spot to shady spot just like we do. And a lot of the forbs that we have growing actually grow quite well in the shade. A lot of our shade-tolerant grasses, the buffalo grass, the Panica maximum is a shade-tolerant grass that grows very well in the shade. Oh, she's actually got an injury on her backside from that elephant's tusks. She's bleeding a little bit. I don't know what that other elephant was doing. I thought it was a young bull, but it just charged her, just rammed her out the way. And then she moved off a bit, and then we saw her again a minute later, and as if nothing had happened. Very strange. See, from shady patch to shady patch. Here comes another elephant down the road. Joshua, elephants are active most of the time. They will have times in the heat of the day when they just sort of stand around and sleep on their feet. And then there's also times at night where you might find them lying down and sleeping. But they're generally pretty active. About 22 hours a day they'll move around feeding. But they will have to have a nap at some point. There's more elephants joining at the back there. I wonder if that's a couple bulls. A bit far off. We'll stay with these two for now. Those other two are probably going to come in this direction. I'm going to switch off again, just let you listen. There's lots of nice bird calls.
It's the month of March and WildEarth is offering you the chance to win a brand new prize. Sign up to be a WildEarth Explorer and you could win a 5-day eco-training ranger experience for 2. Eco-training is the pioneer and leader in safari guide and wildlife training in Africa. The lucky winners can look forward to approaching dangerous game on foot, tracking and 4x4 driving, learning about animal behavior, and even spending one night sleeping out under a blanket of stars. In addition, you will also get the exclusive opportunity to join the WildEarth team on the broadcasting vehicle. Sign up to be an explorer now, and it could be you that wins this life-changing experience. Terms and conditions apply.
Riverbeds are a great way to find water and look for places where elephant have excavated hollows. You can then dig into the sand, and after a couple of feet you should find damp sand which then can be squeezed out or siphoned off for water. And with water being one of our scarcest resources, it is a good idea to conserve water where and how you can.
My name is Taylor McCurdy and I work for Eco Training. I love hearing from all of the viewers. However, I particularly enjoy those of you who have been watching for a few years. Your questions are just so advanced and they really get me thinking. If you'd like to ask a question on WildEarth, you need to register on our website. Once you've done that, head to the live safari page and submit your questions below the live feed.
Guys, just watch what's happening. See, watch the elephant, watch the lions. See, the first ones to run are the cubs. Can you see them? They are right here. I'm not sure how scared you were, but I was quite nervous. But absolutely incredible.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
Welcome back to andBeyond Phinda. Just as Craig and I had hoped would happen, that big tusker has joined the rest of the bulls here. Now there's this one in front of us we can see quite clearly. He's just put the kai apple branch into his mouth. Behind him is the big tusker, now concealed behind the kai apple. So a bit tough to see his ivory for now, but I'm hoping that he keeps on walking and that maybe we can reverse back a little bit and try and get you a view of those magnificent set of tusks, or that magnificent set of tusks that he's got. The elephants seem to have also slowed down here. When we first spotted them, they seemed to be moving quite, I won't say quickly, but they were moving with purpose, kind of across the hillside here. But they've slowed down in this particular area, so probably a really good patch of grazing that they found here. And this bull supplementing the grass with a bit of foliage. Okay, the big bull's come out, everybody. Sorry, we're going to have to reverse back a little bit if we are to get a view of his tusks before he turns around and we can't see his face. So please just bear with us while we reverse a bit here, everyone, because it will be really, really worth it if we can get a nice look at him from the front on. And often with big tuskers, that is the best, well, it's definitely the nicest view, and it's the best way to appreciate their tusks. Often from the side, the tusks don't look quite as big as they are, especially if the tusks curve. But there he is, moving up the hillside. Some of you may recognize this particular elephant bull. That, have a look on his left ear there's that very distinctive tear at the top of his ear, and there are those massive tusks. Look at how far down they come. They come down just before kind of where his knee would be. Certainly that right tusk long and straight, whereas the left one a bit more curved. And he is absolutely enormous. Look at how far down that belly of his hangs. It hangs almost right down to his knees. And a massive head, even compared to these other bulls. He's got a much bigger head, a much thicker base to his trunk than the others. And then obviously those very thick, long tusks, all signs of an elephant bull in his prime. And he's still slowly moving along. I think we might actually be able to get another view, because it would be really nice again to get a look at his tusks from the front on. So I'm going to reverse us back one more time, just to see if we can't get a better shot of him, but also maybe even get all of the bulls in one shot. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at least that we can see in this little area. The big Bachelor herd of elephant bulls. Most of them, like the one we saw earlier that had the very clean tusks, younger, and then there's at least 2 or 3 older, bigger bulls, like this one here with the big tusks. Unfortunately, the grass is so long that it's going to be a bit hard to see, but I think that's going to be our best view for now. We'll see maybe if he comes Every now and then he lifts his head and you can see a bit more of his ivory. But yeah, look at how much thicker those tusks are than that bull we saw earlier, whose tusks we were remarking on how clean they looked. Look at how he's holding just his one ear out, now both ears. The breeze is blowing straight from him to us. And earlier Dan was talking about elephants flapping their ears to help to keep themselves cool. Why flap your ears when you can just hold them out and the wind blows onto the back of them for you without you having to move them? Also making good use of all the grass here. Noel, you're asking a very interesting question. You're asking if the offspring of a big tusker like this will also have big tusks. Noel, so with elephant ivory, the size of the tusks is a genetic trait. I suppose also their growth will be influenced by their nutrition once they're actually born, but it's not guaranteed that his offspring will have big tusks like he does, but they will carry the gene to have big tusks. So it may be, of course, with genetics, if the female that he mates with also carries that gene, and if that gene is dominant, then there's a pretty good chance that the offspring will have big tusks. If it's not dominant though, if it's a recessive gene, then it will take, then the percentage chance of the offspring having big tusks is a bit smaller. But if they both carry the gene and that gene is dominant, then the odds of, then the calf is going to have big tusks. Without getting too complicated in terms of the calculations with genetics and, Anyway, so hopefully we'll see in the next couple of years. I'm not quite sure that we know exactly which elephant calves on this reserve he has fathered. And it may even be some of these younger bulls that are moving around with him, may even be his offspring. And we've certainly seen some young elephant bulls on the reserve that were born here that have got some pretty impressive tusks for their age and for their size. There's two in particular that I think by the time they get to the age of this bull, they'll have tusks as big as his, if not bigger. And often with elephant bulls, the growth of their tusks tend to grow quite long and thin earlier on in life, and then once they get into their later years, kind of their 40s into their 50s, those tusks start to grow exponentially in weight as they start to thicken. That's when most of the mass apparently gets kind of deposited, or that's when the tusks tend to grow the most in terms of their mass, is in the later years of their life as they start to thicken, and then that mass grows exponentially. But you can just imagine for this elephant bull. Another thing I've noticed about him, and have a look at his head compared to the bull to his right. Now I know the bull on the right is quite a bit further away from us, but look at how much smaller that head is in relation to his body compared to the big tusker in front of us here. And this old bull seems to have a really, really big head in relation to his body size, even compared to other big bulls on the reserve. And obviously those tusks much thicker, so much bigger kind of openings in his skull and in his lip line there, those sockets where the tusks go into. But just imagine for him as well how heavy that head must be. There's the mass of his skull, the mass of his trunk, and then the additional mass of those enormous tusks to support. Craig and I are going to keep on watching these elephants. It'd be really nice to try and get another view of this big bull with his big tusks. While we wait for him to come out of that thick grass, let's go back across to Tswalu.
So we're back at Tswalu, and we've got a very unique antelope there. We don't see them every day, but a very nice roan bull. And he was lying in the shade. He might even consider lying down again. He's chosen a really tiny tree to lie down, but there was enough shade there for him. And he's just got up now, so now he's just scratching. There's probably some louse flies trying to bite him in the ears there. Yeah, incredibly long ears that they do have. He can hear me, that's for sure. Just a really, really impressive antelope. So the second largest antelope. So he's quite tall. He's well over 1.5 meters at the shoulder. So quite tall relative to other antelope. And then that beautiful sort of black and white coloration on the face. But both male and female will have those curving back horns. The male's just thicker and slightly longer than the females. It's just adjusting position, yeah. But I mean, side on, they're incredibly impressive. Very large neck. I've actually yet to see 2 roan bulls fighting. I think that would be quite nice for me to be able to see. Haven't seen that, but they can fight quite aggressively. They'll sort of tip their head right down and then clash their horns to fight. And with them and the sable, they do tend to go down on their knees to fight. Because of the heat that we are experiencing today, he doesn't want to move around too much. Moving around too much results in sort of moisture loss, and then he struggles to maintain his temperature. So that's why he would rather just stay in a shady spot, wait until it gets a little bit cooler, and then he'll still have time this afternoon going into the evening to browse a little bit before going into the evening, and then he would most likely spend the evening lying down. We think he is on his way to the watering hole. We've just come from there, but we're going to send you across to Andrew, who's also at a watering hole.
Good luck, dearie, with the Roan antelope. It's just a land mammal, but now we've got actually a water mammal, where the hippo in their pool still, they're actually doing a beautiful activity there, playing inside of the water. Since yet is not a time for them to move out of the water permanently for feed, where they will do that when it's cool off, the dark take place at night. Quite a big a number over here. So looking at maybe 4 of them there. It's probably females and they're all the youngest. Can't be all hers. Maybe 1 or 2. And the rest from maybe another mother. Hippo. They eat grass when they're outside of the water. Jackson, so you're asking if a hippo mate for life? The females, they gather around as a group, and of course dominated by male. You know, depending on the amount of watering hole around here and an amount of difference, male, those are not dominating sometimes. The group can split between, and the others head off different way, and that bull would defend them not to return back here, because otherwise it's going to be fight if the two bulls ever together. But the lack of, maybe shortage of males, they would actually mate for life. Those are the group of females. But only males, then the dominant change quite often due to the power where the challenge take place. Another male will force to come in, you know, to take these part of the hippos as all females. And that's where the fight begin. So on males, yeah, can change quite often, but the female, they remain as a group forever. Those are males that grow up here. Those are born in this group. When they're fully growing, more likely to be pushed off sometimes by the father. And then for them to choose their way out, and the only female that will remain in this group. Charles, so you're asking how much time do they spend outside of the water? The whole night. So usually some of people, they will get up anything from 7:30, or latest 8 o'clock at night. And then 1200, 1800, will definitely start to make their way out of the water. Those are skittish. They remain for longer, maybe 2100 until they get out. But those are not really afraid of anything. They're not skittish. They tend to get out quite early. And the time that they spend from there until sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning, that's when they return back to the water. So it looks like the whole night they spend outside of the water. And then all that night when they're outside of the water, since there's no sunshine, and the whole skin of this animal, it's all a little gland which produce oily secretions, which is able to soften the skin since they're outside of the water. Back to the water early in the morning, they're still fine. But if they would spend a lot of days outside of the water during a hot day, then of course it's a problem, because that's oily. They'll run out of it and the skin dried out, resulting in crack bleeding take place. So I'm going to continue doing my search around here, see if I can find any tracks that we can follow for a cat. I'm going to be sending you across to a Phinda.
You're back with us here at andBeyond Phinda, and unfortunately this big tusker is still playing hard to get in terms of giving us a nice view of his wonderful tusks. See, he's currently buried in that thicket in front of us there. Looks like a mixture of thorny kerries and kai apples. See how the bush is moving. It seems like he's actually pushing himself into the bush. Maybe trying to reach into the center to get to some tasty creepers. Or perhaps, I can't see any fruits on that kai apple, but there might be some that are hidden away in there that the birds and other animals haven't got to just yet. That he's maybe trying to reach with that trunk of his. That's not a very big thicket, and an elephant of his size, with a trunk as big as his, I'd expect him to be able to reach in there, even from outside of the thicket, no matter which way you look at it. With all of these bulls still very slowly moving through this area, it's obviously, like I said earlier, a really good pasture, really good nutritious grass. And I don't know if you're able to, or if you've noticed with this, the light has changed a little bit. It was earlier pretty bright and intense, and the sun is slowly starting to sink towards the western horizon behind us. And with that, the afternoon's gently kind of cooling off, but there's also suddenly an abundance of bird calls. I don't know if you can hear, there's a very high-pitched metallic chinking sound. I'm going to keep quiet, see if you can hear it. Like a tink, 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 tink. And that's from a Zitting cisticola, a tiny little brown bird that lives in these grasslands, that at this time of year often does little display flights. And that's the sound that it will make while it's doing that display flight. So they'll fly up out of the grass, and they'll do like they'll kind of fly along straight and then do a little dive, and then fly along straight and then do a little dive, and then fly along straight. And as they do that, they'll give off that zitting sound. And they're all displaying in this long grass. There's a couple of barn swallows also that are flying around the elephants. No doubt feeding on the insects that they're disturbing as they feed. But yeah, unfortunate that we didn't get a chance to get another look at this elephant bull. I think Craig and I are going to move out of this area. We've spotted some rhinos glistening in the distance, their bodies covered in mud on this hot day, and we're going to see if we can try and get closer to them.
There are millions of people and animals around the world that call forests their home. From the gorillas in the bamboo forests of Rwanda,
about 10 feet away from a silverback gorilla,
to the elephants in the Congo rainforest.
there's a really big chance that this elephant has never been seen by another human being before.
This World Wildlife Day celebrates forests, forest species, and the countless livelihoods they sustain.
So in 1998, we had this idea to go and put a live web camera on a waterhole somewhere in the Sabi sands next to the Kruger National Park. And I approached just about every single landowner, and everybody thought I was completely crazy until I met Yuri and Pippa Moorman.
We thought it was definitely a fun idea and a worthwhile thing to experiment.
And it immediately became a runaway success. And it gave people all around the world the opportunity to watch a little piece of Africa, day and night. Back in 1998, it was the very early stages of the internet. And all we were able to do was to get a 30-second refreshing JPEG out of that camera. But over time, what we began to do is focus more and more on trying to develop this concept of giving people the opportunity to go on safari.
Even though we live just 500 meters up this hill, we still put the camera on to see what's happening.
Absolutely, we watch it ourselves.
My name is Lauren, and I'm currently working in Djuma Private Game Reserve here in South Africa. I love answering your questions during the live safaris. It's my favorite part. It feels like you're on the vehicle with me, and I'm able to teach you exactly what you want to know. If you want to ask a question on WildEarth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, you must go to the live safari page and ask your question below the live feed.
We have a baby pangolin, a baby pangolin. This is off the charts. This animal is about from your fingertips to your elbow. That's the total length of this animal. This is unreal. This is unreal. This is unreal. This is like now my 4th Christmas in a week. We should do this more often.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to andBeyond and Ngala. What we managed to find in the long grass, lying in the shade of this guarri tree, looks like a few members of the Birmingham Pride. And I can see what looks like an older lioness that's quite close to us. It looks like there's those 2 cubs who are around a year old that are also hiding under the tree. I'm sure their mother's at the back there as well. It's just a guess, though. It just looks like there might be 4, maybe 5 lions underneath this guarri bush, just taking it very easy. I mean, it is a very warm day. We saw those elephants earlier that had just finished wetting themselves, cooling themselves down. These lions as well are taking advantage of the good cover